So good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started with our meeting. So we're going to call our meeting to order, April 10th, Penn Branch Civic Association meeting at the order. So if you can have a seat, we're going to go ahead and get started. Usually it's at 7 o'clock. We're starting a little bit late. Our apologies, but we did have a great meeting prior to this meeting that was focusing on families and children. So we had a lot of residents. One of their concerns, we have a whole lot of new parents, new births in Penn Branch. So one of the things this group wanted to form a support group is to find new ways to bring some youth to the group, but also look at playgrounds, parents, babysitting, and everything else that we can do to help the new parents in the area. So we really are glad they were able to do it. We want to give our neighbor Jalon, who said after that she was so exhausted, thanks, and we also want to thank Kayvon from the mayor's office who was at the meeting, so he's doing double duty. So I tell you what, we're going to run this meeting a little bit different because we have a lot to get in. We are very pleased that our Attorney General Carl Racine is already here. He was very prompt and got here early. So we don't like to keep our guests waiting, so I tell you, we normally do a lot of our community business, so we have some must-dos. So we have Lieutenant Jameson, who is always here prompt and on time and waiting, and in exchange we feed him. But we're very appreciative of the lieutenant. So again, like I said, I'm going to kind of turbocharge this meeting, but I'm going to make sure that we cover a lot. We do have a lot to cover. We have elections coming up. We have a lot of community events that are coming up, and then we have some general business. So in keeping with our bylaws and what we have to do, I tell you, we have our treasurer. It looks like I saw him walking down the street with the Washington Nationals baseball hat on. So I know exactly where our treasurer is. It's going to take me a minute. He did submit his report, but we'll do a couple housekeeping, and then I'll do that report toward the end of the meeting if it's okay with the body. Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. But what we'll do is move on. We'll have our secretary's report now, and then we'll go through a few quick items. And I know Kayvon has a meeting, so I know a couple things we said we'll front end. So we'll have a report from our secretary, Tawana Banks.
Good evening. I just want to go through some of the highlights of the last meeting on the 13th of March. We had the guest speaker from the Department of Transportation, Director Jeff Maroshian. He focused on the most important factor of DOT was safety. Also, the mayor's initiative or program, Vision Zero, to eliminate traffic congestion by 2024, and to focus on traffic patterns and safety issues in specific intersections within the city to reduce injuries and fatalities. Officer Jameson reported and continues to look at your surroundings when you're going to the local gas station. And there has been a rise in crime in the Ward 7 with auto theft. He revisited the speed cameras from Penn Branch Shopping Center all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue and talked about the vandalism of the speed cameras within the communities. Lastly, there's a call for new officers for the PBCCA. Please contact Elsa Nash. That's all I have. So there's a motion to accept minutes.
So move.
Second. Motion accepted.
Motion accepted. Thank you very much, Tawana. Appreciate it. So with that, we'll move on with our crime report from Lieutenant Jameson.
Good evening. TSA 605 crime report. Last meeting I reported it was a 100% decrease in violent crime, and there was no violent crime reported in 605. But now there has been some violent crime reported in 605. And that made the violent crime jump up by 60%. But the property crime went down 39%. Or overall decrease in crime of 19%. I'm going to go with the violent crime for you real quick and where it was at. We had 3 ADW guns. None of these were shootings. These were just guns pulled over people. 4300 block of Hildrich, 2300 block of Penn, and 2900 block of P. There were 3 robberies reported. 4300 block of F Street, 2800 block of Minnesota Avenue, and the 3900 block of Penn. There were 2 burglaries, 2300 block of Penn, I keep hearing that time, and the 2900 block of Pennsylvania, 2900 block of Peachtree. Like I said, property crime is down, so we only had 4 stolen autos. 3900 block of Penn, 4200 block of Mass, 4300 block of H Street, and the 2900 block of Penn. There were 10 stolen autos, 3000 block of Alabama Avenue, 1100 block of Branch, 2300 block of Fairlawn, 3000 block of M, 3000 block of Alabama, 700 block of Ridge Road, 4200 block of Burns, 3200 block of Oak, 1400 block of 29th, 2200 block of Penn again, and the 1500 block of Main Street. And we do have a beat down there now in the 2200 block of Penn, as you can hear. A lot of stuff going on there about where the freeway is. So we do have 2 officers that walk that beat during the daylight hours. We have 1 officer down there doing the midnight tour that I work, because the crime down that area, right? The crime in that area by the freeways kind of jumped up. Money come from the gas stations, the carjackings, and stolen autos coming from the gas stations. Like I said, in times past, people still leave their keys in the car to go, pay for the gas, come back to the car down. So you can't do that. You know, the car will warm up. You just got to put the key in and turn it again. Just don't leave it running. But that's what it is. That's the excuse they give. Well, I don't want the car to, get cold, and I want to get back in a nice, crispy, warm car, put your car down, so you got nothing. All right? So please, take these keys out of these cars when you go pay for this gas. Blow your windows up and lock the doors. Like I said in the last meeting, there are people that get up every morning to figure out how to rip you off. And we don't need to help them. But not do what we're supposed to do, okay? That's all I have. Any concerns, stuff I need to be way aware of that I don't know, crime-wise, I'll be happy to try to address it for you. Everybody must be leaving. Okay. You sure? I feel slighted. But all right, no problem. I'm going to sit right here. I'm going to get some people to come back and listen to the Attorney General. So you can tell me anything you need to have. Okay? Appreciate it. Thanks.
Lieutenant
I'm going to eat right now.
Lieutenant Jameson, thank you very much. And then one thing, right, while the lieutenant is here, that one thing that we have going is we do have security cameras in the area. We've got a big push. We are not the highest number in security cameras, and I think for a while I've been talking about this. We have a goal. We want to try to at least get a couple security cameras on every block. It's for our benefit. It's a deterrent. It doesn't stop crime, but having security cameras, you sure do capture it. We have a few new neighbors that just added them. For example, Joan McKenzie just added them, added some security cameras. I just did it. So we're encouraging everyone to do it while there's still a rebate. Because if you look at it, you can get 3 or 4 cameras or even more. $500 rebate can get you $500 worth of outside cameras. They do have to be outside, but considering that that's a rebate, that means you can get 3 or 4 cameras, even good cameras like Nest, and all you have to do is pay the installation. You register them with the Metropolitan Police Department, and you get a refund, but you've got that sense of security, and you'll be surprised what you see on some of these cameras, including your neighbors, people, and also crime. It's a deterrent, and I think it's something we should do. So if you go to the website, you'll see I've got the cameras, I've got the forms. We do, and we'll be glad to send it out again to everyone. So just wanted to make you aware of that. I'm going to have some brief announcements from Kayvon Miles, and then again, like I said, we're running this meeting a little bit different just because the AG is here, and we want to be cognizant of his time. So, Kayvon, thank you.
Thank you. How's everybody feeling this evening? Good. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Kayvon Miles. I actually serve as the Ward 7 liaison to Mayor Mary Bowser, and I'm here from the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. I am basically your eyes and ears from the Mayor's Office. So any concerns, any issues, anything that's impacting the Ward 7 community, I am here at your service. I am a native Washingtonian. I grew up here in Ward 7. I went to school here my whole life, and I went off to college in the back to serve you guys. So I'm going to keep it brief because I know the AG is waiting. Basically, I handed, everybody should have one. If you knew, I would get to you before I leave tonight. But I handed out a newsletter from the Mayor's office, and I also handed out a document that details where our investments are in the budget. And so actually these coming weeks, you should be seeing a lot of activity from different agency directors and deputy mayors and different DC officials going around to your community meetings, coming to your schools, and they're actually going to be talking about their investments, whether it's in education, economic development, public safety. You'll see the fire chief, you'll see the police chief, You'll see DPW directors, the people that are running the human services. They'll be out in your community talking to you, and also just receiving feedback where you think more money needs to be, where we need to focus more attention, because this is always a moving process. If you go through the newsletter, it has some pretty important dates and some information. So actually, this coming weekend, the 14th on Saturday, is DC Emancipation Day. So pretty sure everybody knows what Emancipation Day is. DC was the first city in the United States of America to declare the abolition of slavery in the United States of America. So this is a very, 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 very historic day for us. And we really, really, really want you guys to come out, show your love, bring your kids. There's going to be a crazy concert. Just to name some of the names, if you look at it, we got Brandy, Angie Stone, Big Daddy Kane, if you're from the old DC, Allure, Rare Essence, if you're from the real DC, and many more. So there'll be a lot of bands, entertainment. There's going to be things for young people, children, seniors. We're going to have resources there, food trucks. It's going to be a nice time. So please, if you have the time, we actually pushed it back this year because most people, or some people complained yesterday, we started too early last year. We do those on Saturday, so you guys want to get your Z's in after a long week. So we're actually starting the parade at 2 o'clock. It's only going to last an hour, just down Pennsylvania Avenue. And the rest of the festivities I actually take at the center of Freedom Plaza, which is right there at 13th and Pennsylvania, in front of the mayor's office. So it's going to be an awesome time. The following weekend is very important for our community. Ward 7 is most affected by illegal dumping. And so the next coming weekend, April 21st, is International Earth Day. And so the mayor is actually right now circulating a pledge that every resident in DC, if you take 5 minutes on the 21st, whether you get organized in a larger cleanup or a community cleanup, take 5 minutes, pick up some cans, some Snicker papers, some bottles that are sitting in front of your house, you know, in the curb, in the grass area that may, you know, that might be fine. I know a lot of the trash doesn't come specifically from your house. I agree that a lot of residents who talk about trash that blows down the street and it just affects them heavily. But we want everybody to just get involved and commit 5 minutes just to cleaning up your block or your area around where you live in your community, and it'll have a huge, huge, huge impact. Beyond your 5-minute commitment, we actually have a number, over 100 different groups that are volunteering throughout the city, in various neighborhoods all throughout the city, to do 30-minute cleanups. So they come to your neighborhood and they're going to do the whole block, or they're going to do the whole neighborhood. So there's so many different cleanups. Depending on how much time you want to spend 5 minutes, do it in front of your house and get in your car and go about your Saturday. If you want to commit 30 minutes to your community, there's more than likely something going on at your rec center or at some hot spot where you live where the trash is prevalent. Well, we'll have a community organized cleanup via the mayor's office, or it may come from Serve DC or maybe a local business in your community. So be on the lookout for that. A lot of it doesn't have to be online. You'll see people running around in green shirts on Saturday with pickers and things like that, trash bags. Please feel free to just speak to them if you want to get involved. It's totally free. This is your community, so let's be responsible for it. Into connecting to that, if you actually open up the newsletter, there's some basic information about city services. So I'm always pressing my #1 job, and what I made my goal as a Ward 7 liaison is to improve our reporting of issues in Ward 7. Ward 7 has the second lowest usage of 311. So that means we're not in first place, but we're in second place for not reporting problems that the city should be taking care of. And so, let that sink in. We have a portal here. We have 5 different methods for getting in contact with all of our city officials and city services that are responsible for cleaning up streetlights, potholes, economic development, whatever you may need, whatever interest you may have. The AG. 311 is where you need to report this information. You can use your computer if you're at work. You know it's a pothole in your alley, or you want your alley to be redone, or people are driving too fast up the street and you want a traffic safety investigation. It takes 2 minutes to enter this information via 311 online, on your cell phone. You could call in. If you call in now, we have improved the call centers within the last 2 years and added over 50 new call takers. So if you call in 311, you're on the phone under 30 seconds. Your issue is logged and sent off to the correct agency within a minute or 2, depending on how much explanation you need to get. So it's very, very, very efficient, and I want to encourage everybody just to use it. If you know people who do a lot of complaining, but they don't do enough reporting, please encourage them to use 311. Give them this flyer, give them my number. I will come and talk to them. I will show them how to download the app. I will call 311 for them. We have to report these issues. Yes, this is very important. So please display this information. Jimmy spoke about it, the security cameras. We're not #1 in the city right now. Ward 5 is winning, particularly Bloomingdale, with the highest number of private security cameras owned in the city. So this is really, really, really important for your own personal safety. And it's a really, really, really great way to manage crime and the criminal element without so many resources. So you'll be surprised that a lot of people don't want to be recorded when they're committing crime. A lot of people do not want their picture taken or spotlights on them. And if you look in a lot of these communities, cameras help a lot because people steal packages or they do these simple petty crimes. And the next thing you know, within maybe an hour or two, your picture, a screenshot of you might be on Nextdoor, or it may be on Yahoo or Google, or your local beat officer already has it on his phone because of these security cameras. So if you don't know about it, the information is here. You can call the number, or you can actually visit the website and get some more information. There are 2 different programs. There's a rebate program and there's a voucher. The voucher program is for eligible seniors and citizens who are receiving social services. You can actually qualify for that. So I know that Penn Branch is a heavily senior community. We love our seasoned citizens. And so what we actually did last year was we incorporated this program via the Safe at Home program. So if you qualify for the safety improvements that the Office of Aging delivers, you've already qualified for this program. And actually, as a senior, we actually do the installation for you. So we'll contract an installer to come out, and they'll do everything for you. Compared to the rebate program, you know, some of you younger people have to find your own contract. But I'm close on time. Those are my major updates. I know you guys are very intelligent, so you can read the rest of this. I would love to share my contact information before I leave, because I have 2 other ANC meetings to get to. So I can be reached at 202-251-9930. That's 251-9930. My first name is Kayvon. That's spelled K-E-V-O-N, period. Last name is Miles, M-I-L-E-S, at dc.gov. Very simple. Kayvon.miles@dc.gov. If you spelled it wrong, I hope you got my number. Please give me a call. And I'd love to hear from you guys, and I hope to see you around on the 21st for Earth Day. Thank you very much.
Kayvon, thank you very much. So before we bring the Attorney General on, I just want to bring up a couple of things. One, membership in this community, that's what drives us. So if you're eating pizza, things like that come from contributions that people make, but it also comes from memberships. So you'll be getting outreach from the block captains about that. A couple of other things I do want to make, we'll talk about later in the meeting that we're going to do activities. As a community, we try to make sure that we really get to know our neighbors and that we really try to address issues affecting our neighbors. So a couple of things. We didn't have a community, our regular yard sale, but we will have a yard sale. We'll talk about that later in the meeting. We have a new concept for doing that yard sale that would involve our neighbors. We think is going to be very successful. Community block party that we had last year was very successful. We are going to do that again. That takes place in August, the first week in August, second week as a rain day. It was extremely successful thanks to participation from our neighbors and the mayor's office to make sure, and it was well attended. But most of all, thanks to Tawana Banks, who, it was her idea, she planned it, she executed it, and she kept everybody in line, so we're appreciative of that. So much so that it started as a small impromptu block party. Last year she formalized it. This year we're going to formalize it again. We want that to be our annual party event. And that's in lieu of a dinner dance. We used to do that. Dinner dance cost us upward of $5,000, $6,000 and escalated. That was very expensive for chicken. That we can do and have fun. So we've made that decision that we want to have fun. We had hand dancing in the street. It was a great time. Food, people really appreciated it. So we're going to repeat that. Also, earlier in the back of the room, we're going to be doing community activities to get our community moving. So we have a representative that will speak later. Melvin, I think he's in the back of the room, but from Get Strong Fitness. His colleague are back there. We've already got, ironically, people said, I see someone exercising near the Anacostia every day. I see a group of people exercising. So what we did was we bumped into them at an event. So we're going to do a few activities within Penn Branch with Get Strong Fitness, but hopefully we'll be able to have Penn exercising in the streets and some more fun events that we'll talk about. So we want to, like I said, recognize Melvin. You'll see things in the back of the room. That's just a couple highlights. So again, we'll get started with the membership, and I'll flip this meeting and the other details. We hope that the pizza and cookies will keep you here a little bit longer to talk about it later. In addition, I've seen a couple of people in the room. We have Earl Williams, who's president of DC Citizens Federation, and also running for at-large committeeman that's here. We have our State Board of Education representative of Ward 7 and State Board of Education President and Hillcrest President Karen Williams in the room. So we want to recognize them. And we have Marcus Goodwin. Marcus, I can see 10 feet, so I know you're in that direction somewhere in the board. So Marcus Goodwin in the room. And if did I miss anybody else who's running for our office already won? I know, we know Carl Racine is here, so don't point him out. Anyone else? And then I'll encourage you that if you're sitting to somebody next to somebody that you don't know, your neighbor, turn around and introduce yourself if there's a new neighbor in the room or someone who just moved to Penn Branch, but make sure you get to know your neighbor. So with that being said, go ahead and get your pizza, but I want to introduce our speaker for the night. As I said about 10 times, Carl Racine. He's the first elected Attorney General for the District of Columbia. He started in 2015. Office of Attorney General. What's significant for us is independence and accountability in the district residents, for district residents. Now, we had, during that year when he was elected, we had all kinds of candidates there. I think I was out of the country and was appearing by screen. He wasn't able to make it at that one, but he did have some representatives that were here during that time. So I believe this is the first time we've actually had you here since you've been elected. So I think it's a big deal that we have the Attorney General here. You've seen a lot of the highlights of things that he's already done in the news. And most notably, and I think Earl will attest to that, is that when Walmart pulled out, our Attorney General made sure that it wasn't just an empty pullout and something that has some meaning to it. And that's just one of several things that the Attorney General has done. So we want to make sure that, we welcome him. But I'm hoping, and we'll post in detail on the website a lot of the other things that he's done, and he'll talk about some of the things he's going to do. But I think it's very important when you have a representative like Carl Racine, Attorney General Carl Racine, that you recognize him, that we make sure that he has a lot of people that are working in his office. We have Vita Rashad, who's here in the back of the room. And then you got to give a hands off to the attorney for employing her. First of all, I brag about her because she's also chair of Ward 7 Young Democrats. She's been working to get out the vote. She's in her last year of law school. She's taken the bar in a couple of months. So I think that's a lot. And she has 2 children. So in terms of recognizing all the things that the Attorney General has done, I tell you, when you put, you're putting your money where your mouth is, and you put in that agency, make it a hire like Vita and all the other substantive things that we see that he's done. I'm going to skip reading all over the details because I've already sent that out, and I know you all read the listserv. So without that, if you don't read the listserv, I'll prod you to do that later. But I want to welcome our Attorney General, Carl Racine, and thank you for coming.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Good evening. All right, it's a great pleasure to be here. And Jimmy, I really appreciate that warm and generous introduction. I'm sorry that Kavan left because I was going to emphasize that, it really makes sense for us to go and apply for those cameras. I can tell you that I live in Ward 1. I live on, in between 13 and 14 and T Street. And my car has been broken into now 3 times since becoming AG. Going back to being a private citizen may not be a bad thing at some point. I don't know what the deal is, but every time it happens, the first thing I say to myself is, I can't believe I've not done what it takes to get a camera up. And as soon as I call the officers, the first thing they ask is, do you have a camera? So I promise you that after I get home tonight, I'm going to go through the motions to do what it takes to get a camera. And I think it's fantastic that you've got somebody here focused on health and wellness. It's the one thing that we can do for ourselves is really put in more balance in our lives and walk more steps. And, you know, instead of 7 slices, I stick with 6. So I would commend that to you as well. So look, in coming here today, let me agree with you vociferously about Vita. Vita is an extraordinary young person, a mother of 2, as you say, law school at night, studying for the bar, now working full-time at the Office of Attorney General. It would have been an impeachable offense for me not to hire her because she's so extraordinary. And let me add that we've had a couple of other folks in our office. We hired Robert White to be our first community engagement leader. And Robert, of course, is now the at-large council member. Trayon White also worked at our office for just under a year. And Trayon also is now on the council. That's not to put pressure on you, Vita, what you might want to do, but we've got really good people and young people focused on DC, and I think that the better days are really ahead of us. So, in coming tonight, and I know the history of Penn Branch, well organized, and so Jimmy, sure enough, identified some issues that he wants me to address. What he indicated was that people want to know what issues we prioritize, and I'm happy to talk about that. People also want to know about the reports last week of sharing companies on the internet that may be discriminating in regards to certain wards. We heard about the ride service called Via, and the fact that Via is not right now providing services in Ward 7 and Ward 8. Happy to talk about that. Talk also about homeowner retention, and also touch on Walmart. So let me see if I can get all that in the next 12 to 14 minutes or so, and then maybe allow for some questions and answers. I've got to say that what I like to do, if I can save a minute or two, is to give a minute or two of my time over to Mr. Goodwin, who's running for at-large City Council. It's a practice that I have to give a little bit of my time to somebody who dares to run for office so they can be heard. But when I say a minute, I just mean a minute, Mr. Goodwin. Not now. It'll be a little bit later. I will definitely give you that minute. It's so important to get people out here running for office for the right reasons. And by all accounts, Mr. Goodwin is doing it for the right reasons. Okay, so let's go quickly. What are the priorities at the Office of Attorney General? To be sure, the election for the AG's office occurred in 2014, and so I've been in office since January 2015. So we've just about completed 3 years. And I think it's absolutely fair for people to ask, what have you been up to? Let me identify those priorities and then put a little bit of meat on those bones. So priority number 1 for the Office of Attorney General was to follow what the people wanted. And the people of the District of Columbia overwhelmingly through a referendum made clear that they wanted an Office of Attorney General that would be completely independent from the Office of the Mayor. That's not to say that people wanted the Office of Attorney General and the AG to every day wake up and fight with the Mayor. No, what they wanted instead was the Office of Attorney General to have an independent mandate and do things for the public where he or she might be evaluated so that they would be held accountable to district residents. Way back when we first started, Mayor Bowser and our office kind of got into it a little bit around the idea of having an independent office. Happy to say that those early battles were probably necessary in hindsight, but they're over. We are entirely independent, and the Office of the Mayor recognizes and respects that. To the extent there are questions that linger, believe me, I feel totally empowered to assert our independence at any time. So number 1 objective was to do what you all wanted. Act independent, be objective, and also use the law to help regular people. How are we helping regular people? Well, what are our other priorities? Another priority that we identified in addition to independence was we wanted to play a role in the juvenile justice space. And what we really wanted to do around juvenile justice was to create outcomes that would be beneficial to the community and that would actually make the community more safe. Outcomes that enhance public safety. Let's talk about juvenile justice. Why did we focus on juvenile justice in the District of Columbia? Two reasons, really. We know that young people start, unfortunately, a life of crime pretty early. And so the most successful time to intervene is also very early, number one. Number two, we decided to focus on juvenile justice reform because juvenile justice is one of the only things that we have in the District of Columbia that is exclusively in the control of DC officials. So the Office of Attorney General has exclusive jurisdiction over juvenile prosecution. Here's what we did. Once we got into office, we studied what we were doing as prosecutors in the juvenile justice system. Here's what we learned. We learned that we were prosecuting individuals for crime almost on a zero tolerance basis, which is fine if that's the way one wants to approach it. But then we looked at what the outcomes of the prosecutions were. And what we found was that the outcomes of our zero tolerance prosecution were two doors. We would prosecute after a judge finds the young person to be involved. The court would either place the young person on probation or commit the young person to the DC agency that's in charge of handling juveniles who've been adjudged to be guilty. That's DYRS. We looked at the numbers related to recidivism of the probation and DYRS. And what we found were shockingly high numbers around recidivism. For example, probation and DYRS commitment has a rate of recidivism well in excess of 50%. That means that kids who we prosecuted, right, either through probation or committed through DYRS, would eventually come back out at a greater rate than 50% and commit more crime. We thought that those outcomes were not successful outcomes. So what we decided to do after studying what others were doing throughout the country was we created a third door for young people. The third door is a door that is actually not within the criminal justice system, but it's outside of the criminal justice system. Here's how it works. The way it works is that the police and or the Office of Attorney General can choose to not prosecute a young person. In exchange for that not prosecuting a young person option, we instead reach an agreement with the young person and hopefully a responsible parent or adult in that young person's life that we're not going to prosecute you just yet, but here's what we'd like you to do. We'd like for you to take a psychological, educational, and family assessment tool. That tool is pretty exhaustive, and that tool creates a score. That score is a score that essentially measures the anxiety level in young people. A score over 80 means that a kid is feeling really anxious. And when a kid is really anxious, what does that mean? They're more prone to make poor decisions, right? Okay, so fine, we've got this assessment, the kids have taken the assessment, that's great. Then what do? Based on the assessment, what we do is we take a look at what the answers are, and we look at those as needs. We then try to identify services that might match up with those needs of the young people. Okay, so needs, services, intensive services for 6 months. You can call the program diversion if you like. It's actually called the ACE diversion program, Alternatives to the Criminal Experience. But what you need to understand is that it's not a tap on the wrist. It is a real program that identifies the needs of the kids and then provide services to the kids. Now, after 3 years, okay, we've been doing this for about 2.5 because it took us some time to study the system. We have had over 1,750 cases of kids that have gone through diversion. I'm happy to report that nearly 80% of those young people have not been rearrested, okay? What that means is that services that are narrowly tailored to really match up with the real need that a young person has can actually help a kid and a family and a community identify the right direction, not the wrong direction. And so I think that that has been quite successful. I can tell you that we're trying to push that model out to other states, but more importantly, we're ready to double down on that in the coming years, should I be reelected. I should tell you that I'm running for reelection. It turns out right now I don't have a Democratic opponent. There could be an independent or Republican opponent that gets in the race a little later on. But I'm here to tell you that we're going to continue our work on evidence-based solutions to reduce crime focused on young people. Okay, so I've identified 2 initiatives, right? Independence and juvenile justice reform is what I call it. But in a real way, our juvenile justice program is really all about making communities more safe by what? Giving kids the services they need so they don't get into a life of crime. Very important programs. Okay, 3rd initiative that we focused on. Oh, I should tell you. You might ask, who pays taxes here in D.C.? All right. So the diversion program, ACE, for the 6 months of intensive services, cost $4,000. Probation for 1 year for a kid, or commitment at DYRS for 1 year, can vary and range from about $35,000 to as much as $75,000 if the kid is sent out of state, and that happens, okay? So I would argue to you that what we're doing in diversion is producing better outcomes. Number one, it's cheaper, and it keeps kids in the communities in which they have support. So I think it's working on all fronts. Next area of focus for the Office of Attorney General. Does anybody here think that there's a housing crisis in the District of Columbia? Okay, all right. Well, there's a housing crisis in the District of Columbia. We were really focused on our role in this. What role can we play to help? And so what our lawyers and team identified really in talking with the community is we identified numerous examples where I would call it really bad developers, bad landlords, and bad management companies would come into DC, really focus on a set of buildings where people have lived oftentimes for decades. They would acquire those buildings, buy them. Why? Because those buildings were located not so far away from a metro, right? Once they bought the property, they would then follow the business model. And their business models, not all developers, but these developers, were as follows. Once we purchased the property, stop maintaining it, right? Allow the rats, the mice, the rodents, the mold, and all that other stuff to come in, and in the hopes that failure to maintain the property will result in people, what? Moving out. Moving out. And when people move out, what does that mean? That means the landlord, if he gets everybody to move out, has got that building now and can renovate it in a way that they want so that they can find other tenants, right? And we know that there's a law called TOPA out there. The goal also of these bad landlords and bad developers, not every developer, not every landlord, but there are some bad ones, was to deny the tenants their TOPA rights. They would hope that all the tenants would leave, and therefore they wouldn't be able to organize, or only a handful of tenants would stay, and by definition they would be the weaker players and wouldn't have the wherewithal to organize for a competitive bid when the property goes up for sale, okay? So here's what we decided to do. We have lawyers in our office. We decided to sue them like crazy. And so we brought about 7 lawsuits now against slumlords throughout the District of Columbia. And I'm happy to say that after the court's initial hesitancy on these cases, court kind of didn't know what to do with these cases. We're starting to win these cases all the time. And now the slumlords are starting to want to settle the cases. What's really important now is that we're bringing these lawsuits and we're bringing in different theories of law that allow us to not only get the properties renovated, rehabilitated, cleaned up so that people can live in a safe manner with dignity, but also now we're bringing in new theories that allow us to seek restitution, right, from the landlord where the money goes to those tenants. And so in one action that we brought, we were able, this is Terrace Manor, we were able to get a court to make the landlord give the tenants an average of $9,500 a tenant, okay? And that's for rent that they paid for services they didn't receive. So that's holding, to me, that's holding, again, these bad landlords, these bad developers, these bad property managers accountable. All right. Unfortunately, it seems as though we're going to have to do more of that because, we still need to shake out the bad players from the good players. And we're going to continue to do that. The third priority that we had, or fourth priority that we had, was really standing up an Office of Consumer Protection. And so in DC, the Office of Attorney General really didn't have a standalone consumer protection office, and now we do. And what does that office do? That office does a lot of things, including educating consumers on ways for them to protect themselves against those fraudsters who wake up every morning, as the officer said, with one goal in mind, separating you from your money, right? And so we have all manner of educational materials, both on our website and in physical form, that we make available to the public. I'm always around, and Vita is, throughout the city, trying to educate our community about ways to protect themselves. In particular, the senior citizen community. Why? Because the seniors, generally speaking, have done everything right. They worked hard, they raised their kids, they saved their money, and now, oftentimes living on fixed income, but still have money. Those fraudsters are absolutely targeting the seniors because they want the money that the seniors have earned and saved. And it's our job to protect the seniors. So consumer protection is a big, big deal. We're going to have, Vita's got some materials, including magnets that you can put on, a refrigerator or anything else that a magnet sticks to, that has our consumer protection hotline number. We like it when people call us to complain because we see it as our obligation and opportunity to help. So if you have a complaint as a consumer, you feel free to call our office and complain. The last thing I'll say about consumer protection, and then I'll go to the Walmart issue, is this. Not only do we bring consumer protection actions and lawsuits, we also have a real crackerjack group of folks, about 3 people in the office, trained mediators, who are there to help residents in their issues with merchants. Not enough residents call us to get us involved in helping them. But I'm happy to say that just last year, we had enough residents call us that we returned $7 million to residents who called us. And we did it without filing a lawsuit. What we did was we got on the telephone with the residents and the companies, and we dealt with the companies like that. I can tell you that most of the heavy consumer companies, particularly telecommunication companies, cable companies, they have a dedicated line for AGs. AG called to complain, you call this line. And guess what? Their people at those lines are told to resolve the matter, okay? So if you can do me a favor and get the word out that if somebody feels like they've been taken advantage of by a merchant, didn't get the good or service that they bargained for, please feel free to call our office. We'll get on the phone with you. we'll write the letter to the company, we'll follow up, and we'll get you your money back, if there's a good reason for that result. Okay, Walmart. I don't have to tell you the history. Long and short of it is, I think Mayor Gray, did a great job of negotiating the deal. It was a hard deal. It was controversial of bringing Walmart into the city. Now, the mayor wasn't going to sell the city out. The mayor said, look, you guys can come in here, but you're going to have to open stores in areas where the food deserts and there's not enough retail. And Walmart agreed. Now, I got to tell you, went back, we looked at all the documents, all the paper. We didn't necessarily do the best job in the world of dotting the I's and crossing the T's in regards to our dealings with Walmart. Walmart's extremely sophisticated. They're not going to tell you that this is not really a deal, right? And so what did they do? Walmart opened up quite strategically, Georgia Avenue, right by Penn, NOLA, and other areas, and they knew what they were doing. And at the end of the day, they backed out of the deal with respect to Skyland and another area that really needed retail. So we told Walmart once we got in office that we thought what they did was a breach of contract. They wisely said, "Show us the contract." I was like, okay, now they want the contract. Where's the contract? And like I said, the paperwork was not, as pretty as it should have been. At any rate, we told them that we were going to sue them. So we've had this dance with them for a long time. And finally, we resolved it with them, whereby they agreed to pay us $1.3 million going back to the city. I got to say that 1.3 is not the full value of what a store would have been, okay? But I think it's important nonetheless that we pursued the matter and that they're paying the city, because in my experience as AG, what I see all too often is that the city is eager to enter deals with businesses, but the city really doesn't paper those deals well, and the city rarely, if ever, checks to see whether the companies are doing what they said they were going to do. So I think the precedent of holding Walmart accountable was extremely important, and I look forward to doing that in other instances. Let's see if there is something else that I missed that you wanted to talk about.
I think we also mentioned housing, protection, seniors, abusive lending.
Yes,
companies.
so abusive lending, mortgage companies, the practice of redlining, right? Which is where financial services companies make a decision that they're not going to lend money to certain areas because they view those areas as riskier. Surprise, those areas tend to be areas where people of color and folks who may not have the fanciest degrees live. That doesn't mean that they're not credit worthy. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the opportunity to get a proper loan. In that regard, what I can tell you is that our office has absolutely brought suit against payday lenders. We've brought suit against predatory lenders. Let me tell you about one case in particular. We brought suit against a company called Cash Call that was operating on a Native American reservation out in the Southwest on the internet. And what they were doing in regards to consumers throughout the country, including DC, is they were charging these folks usurious rates. So the rate in DC that you cannot charge more than is 24%. Cash Call was charging DC consumers up to 200%. Wow. Exactly. So you had folks who were in a state of great need, right? I need $5,000. I don't know what's going on with my family member per se, but we need it. We're going to sign the deal with a Cash Call. Well, you ever try to pay off a loan at 200%? No. You can't. And so sure enough, in DC residents, a real example, after 5 years of always paying the monthly amount of a $5,000 loan, guess what her balance was? $9,000. Okay? Well, we sued Cash Call, settled the case. They returned every bit of money to that woman and everyone else who had taken out loans from them in DC, and then we got them to forgive another $5 million in loans. But the point for everybody is this: the Office of Attorney General is armed with really good lawyers, happy to come in and help, but we can't help when we don't know what's going on. And that's why it's so important that you've connected to VITA, and that's why it's so important for me to be out here. We've now connected, and you know that you can always reach out. And we may not be able to tell you what you want to hear, we'll tell you the truth. But where there's an opportunity to bring suit and catch your back, we got your back on that. Okay? The last thing you asked me to talk about, I think, was development. And I've got to tell you that, unfortunately, the Office of Attorney General, we don't build property just yet. So I did send an email out to the mayor's team to ask them to provide me with some information about development in particular around this area. And they're going to get back with me. They didn't get back with me in time for me to share information with you. But I'm happy to provide the information that I eventually get to VITA, and I'll make it available to every one of you. I think with that, I'll pause and be happy to answer any
I
questions.
think part of the development question has to do with enforcing first source, which is for the new jurisdiction.
Very important. So the first source rule, it's a great question. So the first source, sure, here's the question. So with respect to development and construction,
This is the question.
here's the question. So in regards to development and construction, DC has a rule called the first source rule, which basically requires companies to first hire DC residents. We're actually being challenged in a lawsuit by a company that claims that the only reason why it didn't hire DC employees was because, and I've heard this before, couldn't find any good qualified workers, right? And so that company is now suing the District of Columbia in court about the constitutionality of the first source rule. I'm very confident that that rule is constitutional and that will eventually win in court. The first source issues is another example of the city entering into contracts and not really focusing on enforcement, right? And so I think that we're getting a little bit better at that, but I think if the executive works more closely with the Office of Attorney General, we can get to a place where all the contracts are, identified and highlighted in ways where we're actually monitoring companies to ensure that they comply. We're not there yet, but I think we need to get there into the future. Thank you for your question. Happy to take any other questions. Mr. Williams.
In regard to Walmart, I know the city did not sign a contract with Walmart, so it's very great that you got some money out of it. That does not obviate the fact that Rappaport still is suing them for pulling out. Am I correct?
That's correct. So Rappaport, the developer who partnered with the city, is suing Walmart for breach of contract that Rappaport entered into with Walmart. And Rappaport is really suing Walmart because Rappaport invested a lot of money in the project only to see its anchor tenant walk away.
Are we going to have something replace the Walmart in Skyline?
Can you speak up? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Are we going to have something replace the Walmart in Skyline?
No.
On that,
I got the answer to that. The answer is no.
yeah, that answer saddens me. But that's for the executive,
It's another.
and your council member, to really deal with. Okay. Please.
You said there was $1.3 million that you got back from the Walmart people?
Correct.
What happens with that money?
So that money goes into the general fund. So right back to the city's coffers, and that money will eventually be spent consistent with the executive and the council's priorities. I have to tell you that Natalie Ludaway, my chief deputy, was fantastic. Natalie is incredible. Natalie and I were pushing hard on Walmart to actually do more than just money, and instead put in some level of retail or pay for things that would ameliorate the food desert, status of our areas, including Skyland. And at the end of the day, Walmart did walk with us down that road for a little while. At the end of the day, it got a little too complicated for them, and it was just, to be honest, easier for them to stroke a check as opposed to providing, organic, fresh food, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a little disappointing on our part, but in a settlement discussion, you only have but so much leverage.
I just want to thank you for the job that you are doing, because on the other end and receive, I guess, a benefit as you sued one of the, companies or whatever they were.
Okay.
And when I saw the check come in the mail, I was like, oh, wow, I thought it was Christmas. But I wanted to say thank you, because it's just, one person couldn't do it. You would call yourself and you're saying, well, no, I don't think this is fair, but it was no having it. And when you and your team, I guess everyone that was involved in it, you found out who it was, and next thing you know, I did receive a check.
It's a good thing.
I have to thank
Thank you for calling us. That's the key. I was at, there was a Palisades parade. I guess that's all the time around Portland. Right. And was walking that parade last year. It was hot. And out of nowhere, I saw a woman, you just say your peripheral vision. I saw a woman coming at me to my left, and I gotta say, I didn't have the officer with me, so I just took a step back and tried to say, okay, where is she going? And she kept coming at me, and then literally grabbed me, right? And then said, thank you. I said, oh, thank God. And I said, ma'am, why are you thanking me? And she said, well, I'm thanking you in your office because I got a check the other day for $37,000. And I said, well, ma'am, I don't know about this story. Can you tell me? And she said, yes. I bought a car, and I knew it had a problem, but I kept thinking that it would go away. And so I allowed that lemon law period of time to expire. And then my car literally kept falling apart. And I went back to the dealer, they're like, hey, you're 2 weeks beyond the lemon law day, sorry, can't help you. And sure enough, one of my colleagues hadn't told me this, called the mediation line stuck with her, and sure enough, she got that $37,000 back and returned that bum car. Which is, again, to say, call us. Okay? Now, I think I did save a minute for Marcus Goodwin. Come on up here. Again, I do this because it's so important that young people understand that this is their community and that they need to step up and participate and help. Go ahead, you got a minute.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Marcus Goodwin. I'm running for DC Council at Large. I'm one of 8 kids in my family. I'm the 5th, so there's no psychology to define me. But I grew up balancing conflict and consensus from an early age. My mother raised us, and we saw that in one generation, positive educational opportunity can help you achieve economic mobility. I'm focused on 3 things as I run for council. 1, economic empowerment, especially for Ward 7 and 8. My family moved to Ward 8 in 1999. In 2010, Ward 8 had 7 full-service grocery stores. Today, there are only 3 full-service grocery stores for 155,000 DC residents. That makes it one of the worst food deserts in the country. Second, I'm focused on education. My mom's a DCPS teacher at Lafayette Elementary. We see that our schools need to be able to budget independently from central office and not run the same way. Anacostia High School has a different population than Wilson High School, and they should be treated as such so that we can provide the best possible public education. And third, the construction of more affordable housing. What do I want to do that we aren't currently doing? We need to focus on creating tax increment financing bills, pass them through council in Ward 7 and 8. There has never been what we call a TIF, a tax increment financing bill, in Ward 7 and 8. But the Wharf was a TIF, Union Market was a TIF, Convention Center was a TIF. It's time for Ward 7 and 8 to get that kind of attention. I hope that's 1 minute. Thank you all for having me tonight. I look forward to speaking.
Excellent. Okay, well, look, I guess this is the time. So if there are no other questions, and then if there's no other pizza,
We're pretty good. I don't know, I just want to double check to make sure there's no questions. I don't know if you'll be here in a few seconds before.
Yeah, sure.
Plus, we'd like to get a few photos. So, if there's no other questions, you'll be in the back of the room for a few minutes. But on behalf of Penn Branch, the people that are here, and maybe that are not here, just want to thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. We'll be, of course, outreach, but I can say you've got a great team that's doing it. But we appreciate you coming here to be with us. So let's just give the Attorney General.
Well, I didn't grow up in Ward 7. I stayed at Fort Davis Street right up the way because my cousin and his mom, my Aunt Mary Whedon, lived over there. So I stayed up here in Ward 7 running around as a kid. So it's good to be home.
So we like that, and we'll work on getting you back.
All right.
We greatly appreciate it.
Again, thank you very much.
Okay.
So, like I said, I promised that we were going to turbo do it. So one of the things we talked about was having the Attorney General come back. He's back.
You know better than invite me, I'm coming. But look, Vita also has our, our 3-year report. Check out our 3-year report. We also, in addition to the 3-year report, you can sign up a sheet that Vita has that will give you the entitlement to receive our newsletter free of charge. Gives you a quick update every 2 weeks about things that we're doing, okay? Oh, you know what, I didn't get a question on this, but sorry for taking a little extra time. We sued President Trump on the basis of 2 constitutional clauses called the emoluments clauses. We had an argument way back in January on those, and then we got a ruling just 4 weeks ago from the Federal District Court that indicated that we, the District of Columbia, and my colleague in Maryland, have standing to move forward in our suit. The next date we have is June 11 for an argument on what the definition of an emolument is. And then after that, we'll be able to start getting documents from the President's businesses to understand where that money is coming from that's going into his hotel. What we know is that foreign governments are going to that hotel, spending liberally, because they tell you the truth. You say, why are you here? Oh, we got to make sure the President knows that we honor him, because we got some business to do, and we don't want the President to think that we don't honor his personal business. That's illegal. That's why we're suing.
Again, thank you very much. So, the other thing we talked about is we do have a lot of activities planned. So I want to have Marvin, I saw you back there 2 seconds ago, but I want to have the Get Fit team come up here to talk. We really want to talk about a couple of big things that we're going to do in this community. It's my last 3 months that I'm really racing to get to the end of. It's been a great show. I really enjoyed it, but I want to make sure that this is full and robust. And then we want to talk about a special meeting that we're going to have tomorrow for my Education Committee Chair. But Marvin, unless you're shy. No.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Jeffrey. I just messed that up. Wait, you know what? I just called this man Marvin 3 times in a row. And I'm looking at the paper saying Jeffrey, and charge it to my typing.
All right, how y'all doing today? Well, the first thing I wanted to talk about is that there's a lot of pizza going on that I saw in the back there. I hope y'all plan on working all that good stuff off a little bit later. Or having those multi slices. But no, I just wanted to let you all know that I represent Get Strong Fitness. We're a Ward 8 days personal training service. We've been here for the past few years now. We started off in 2014, out in September, And for the past few years, we've been in Florida Avenue. We've had class in Anacostia Park, and we recently opened up a gym in Northeast. So if you're all interested in learning about that, please let me know. The main thing as to why we wanted to set up in DC was that we know there's a big issue in regards to the development of chronic diseases, the lack of socioeconomic health, and the lack of understanding of how to pretty much deal with a lot of the stress and a lot of our causes of a lot of the issues that we have in our communities. So with our company, we're teaching people how to eat properly, how to deal with your grocery stores, how to survive in the food desert, how to work out with the little bit that you have. And so that's the first thing. And we're also working on trying to connect with more people here. We're interested in hosting more classes to get people involved into what you're doing, how to make the most out of your parks and your recreational time. Whether you have 15 to 30 minutes, how can you can do the most of that? So that's something that we're really working towards. And to finish off, we are really working towards just bringing fitness to DC as a whole on this side of the river. When you look around, there's not a lot of gyms over here. You have to go to District Heights or you have to go to Eastover for a gym. You have to go across the water. We want to make that more accessible and easier for people here. And so we recently put in a proposal to the MLK Gateway. So we're going to try to make that dream a reality. But if you all like to speak to me or you have any questions, please let me know. I have business cards laid out in the back of the front table you all signed in at. And if you all have any questions, now is the time. If not, well, thank you all very much. This was a great evening.
So, Jeffrey, thank you very much. Now, we sent out a live link to the website. We'll post it on our website, and then we're working together on some things that we'll do, as I mentioned here, right here in Penn Branch and nearby. So we're encouraging everyone, you know the temperature is cold today, that means you have on coats, but come Thursday when the temperature hits up 80 degrees, the truth will be no. So let's just make sure. Let's just make sure. So we'll work with Jeffrey. We'll post it on the website, but we want to encourage our residents. And like I said, we think it'll be fun. We have a lot of hills in the communities. We have our own parks. There's a lot we can do to work out. So Jeffrey, thank you very much, and we'll talk. Jeffrey has his materials in the back of the room. Again, we're planning to talk about what the good work that he's doing. Already a few residents had already emailed me, as I mentioned earlier, so we want to make sure that we support what they're doing. We support the company, entity that's right here in the neighborhood. We know we have Planet Fitness coming at some point in the area, but guess what? Working outdoors can be a whole lot of fun. So again, Jeffrey, thank you very much. Thanks, appreciate it. We'll see you. He'll be in the back of the room, so we'll talk to him. So next thing, we're going to follow back up, and again, I'm going to slow down, but we have a lot to cover in a short period of time, and I want to be respectful of your time. I know Marla would like to do an announcement because we have another important meeting that takes place from the Penn Branch Education Committee in this room tomorrow, and Marla's going to talk about that briefly.
Good evening. My name is Marla Dean, and I'm the Education Chair here at Penn Branch Civic Association. Tomorrow we're having a Ward 7 Education Roundtable discussion, and the DCPS Interim Chancellor as well as the Interim Deputy Mayor of Education will both be here, Anna Smith and Amanda Alexander. We're hosting this joint Education Committee meeting with Hillcrest Education Committee. And the reason why we're having this conversation is manyfold. You've heard about all the controversy that's happened in the city around education. But Hillcrest and Penn Branch and Ward 7 has actually been deeply involved in advocating for a different educational landscape for our children. And so we're going to talk about issues of feeder patterns. We want to talk about the absence of middle schools in our community, tag programming, so many different things. What's going to happen with Winston? What's going to happen with Fletcher James? There are just so many conversations that are happening in Ward 7 that we are trying to address, because right now we're just not experiencing the type of outcomes in other parts of the city. And so many of our children, you may have seen the chart that went around of how many of our children actually leave Ward 7 to go to other wards to go to school. So there are many pertinent issues. Please let everyone know tomorrow, right here, 7 p.m., we're having an education roundtable, and we hope that you will come out, especially tell people you know who have children, because we want people who have children, school-age children, in the room. This is a very important discussion. We really know that this is important. It's important for so many outcomes, health, economic development, but also just because we care about children here on Ward 7 and we want them to have a successful life.
Thank you very much, Laura. Laura Richards' community reports, and we're going pretty quickly, but we want to cram it in before everyone gets tired.
This will be really quick. Okay. Hi, this legislative committee report. I've touched briefly on 4 items. We got a question last month about the TOPA bill, the tenant's opportunity to purchase. So just for status, the bill to exempt single-family homeowners from the TOPA bill had a first reading. It hasn't had final passage. I anticipate there will be final passage. There are 2 amendments, one from Mary Shea that would require landlords to notify their tenants 3 days after they list a house for sale, and then one from Treyon White, who wanted to make it easier for seniors and people with disabilities to understand their TOPA rights. So in all likelihood, people who rent their homes, single-family homes to tenants, will no longer have to comply with TOPA except for giving the tenants notice. Let's see. We have from time to time talked to you about the pension bill, exclusion bill. It died in council last year. It has been pending in council again this year. And there's been no action again. Our Councilman Gray says he's still trying to get some action. There's going to be a hearing on April 18th at 10 o'clock before the Budget Committee. A number of us are going to try to testify there and say, pass this bill. And we hope that many of the rest of you will send emails or try to come down. Oh, I do have a written copy of my report on the back table there, so you can pick it up as you go out. And we do have a website for the restored pension exclusion, so you can check out our website and get all the details. But we all know the issue. The bill, if it ever passes, will let retired public servants deduct $20,000 from their taxable income. It's a great bill. It has lots of co-sponsors. Don't know why the council keeps introducing it and not acting on it. There's a comprehensive plan mega hearing. That was March 20th. It started at 2 o'clock. It broke up around 4 a.m. I testified somewhere around 3 o'clock in the morning. It was fun. The witnesses who opposed the Office of Planning's draft outnumbered those in favor of it. The Office of Planning draft would give the Zoning Commission unchecked authority to interpret the plan, and would also take away citizens' rights to appeal any decision from the Zoning Commission that they don't like. Everyone wants to be able to appeal. So the Office of Planning draft is sort of the, shut up and go home and we'll tell you what we want to give you version of the comprehensive plan. It's in all likelihood the council is going to substantially revise the Office of Planning draft, and so that we will at least retain our rights to be heard in the zoning and planning forum. Penn Shopping Center, the O Street neighbors have continued to meet with Share Lynch representatives intermittently. A revised plan will be published for comment in the next, sometime this spring, before too long. There's likely a second hearing for the zoning commission in the fall. And I think the O Street neighbors will, be, putting out more information as they move along. So, thanks.
Thank you very much, Joan. And the association will also comment again, but we want to make sure that we bring this community together no matter what we do. O Street, Highwood, whatever street you're on, we'll be doing that. So I know we want to talk, I mentioned a couple of important things. In this community, a couple of things we want to do, we're looking at just doing what can we continue to build and grow this community. We have a lot of new neighbors in this community, and a lot of old neighbors, and new ways and old ways. Well, what we want to do is get people working together. So the yard sale, we weren't able to do it. We had a conflict. But we are going to have the community yard sale. So I'm going to ask, if I'm not surprising her, Joan McKenzie to come up and Susan Harmon to come up and talk about the yard sale. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Usually about this time, we're planning for a yard sale that we have at the this church's parking lot, the Penn Avenue Baptist Church parking lot. It's a great site because you've got lovely frontage on Pennsylvania Avenue, but unfortunately we had a conflict. We weren't able to secure a date, so we were going to not go ahead with the yard sale, but then Tawana came up with a really great idea of possibly having yard sales where it's a community-wide yard sale. People have yard sales in their homes, like on their property, or maybe we might have some coordinated sites. We have to explore the concept, but we're looking at doing a community-wide yard sale. So we would have advertising, but there would be multiple sites for the yard sale. So I did send around a sign-up sheet if people are interested in participating in that concept, either participating or helping out by volunteering to help plan the event. So it is exploratory. We're looking at doing it. It seems like people are interested in, it seems like we have a lot of interest. So if we do have enough interest and we do have enough volunteers to help plan, we will move forward with that concept. We would look at a June date, possibly June, maybe early July. So has anybody seen the sign-up sheet? Okay, it's over there. Can you, thanks. This side didn't get to see it, right? We can, yeah, why don't we have it come down here. Okay, so if you're interested in participating or helping out, please sign the sheet. Thanks. You want to add anything else on?
No, I think it's a great event, and Joan and Susan and a couple of other volunteers have been doing it for years. I think this is a novel way to do it, so we're really excited about it to revive it, and Tawana seems to be the one that really drives the good ideas, and Joan and Susan, so thank you very much for doing that. I'm going to segue in. We got a couple more announcements, and we're done. Tawana's going to talk about the community block party that we're having. Tawana? Yes, I just volunteered you. Come on. And quite seriously, Tawana has been very good at organizing before, so.
Well, all I really need to say is we need volunteers, and we're going to do the block party again this year. We're planning to do it the second Saturday in August. Yeah, the second Saturday in August. And that the rain date will be the third Saturday, so that our college students are able to attend. And it'll be the same concept set up as we did last year. It was very successful. So what we'll do the next meeting, we'll send out a list for the volunteers. Jimmy decided, let's get an early start on this. Okay?
So that would be August 11th, and if it rains, that'll be August 18th. So I know we have two more announcements, and then we're just about done.
Hello, I just want to take a few minutes of your time. My name is Harold Davis. I'm one of the solid waste inspectors for Ward 7. I've been over here for approximately 5 months. I'm going around to the ANC meetings and the Civic Association meetings to let y'all get to know me as an inspector. I put out some pamphlets on the table out there dealing with sweep, some of the issues, like your trash cans being placed back in your property, how you have to maintain your property from the front of your property on the public space. Also, trash cans, I want to speak of trash cans, because there have been an increase in citations for your trash cans being out on public space after 8 p.m. on collection day. The director and the mayor asked us to back off with the citations a little bit, educate a little more, issue a warning, and then cite, because there are people that probably have been doing it for a while. And also I have here on the back is what is called a hardship collection service for our seniors who cannot remove the cans and our disabled residents. These forms of, you cannot have an able body in the house to get this service. But if you are a senior, your doctor can fill this form out. They don't have to tell us what's your condition. It just has to be filled out by your doctor stating that you are unable to move those cans. They would give you the handicap cans, and it would stay in your yard, and our trash guys will come into the yard and remove the cans and place them back. So I'm just letting you know I'm here. I'm gonna try to get on your agenda so I can give more information out. The next time I come to the meeting, I'm gonna stay here. If anybody have any questions, I will be here for y'all to ask me those questions. Yes, ma'am.
Could you go over, you mentioned that there's a law, a rule or law that after 8 p.m. on collection day?
Yes, the regulation is this. This is the regulation. Your solid waste container can be placed out, solid waste recycling can be placed out the day before your collection, no earlier than 6:30 p.m. the day before of your collection. It has to be back onto your property by 8 p.m. the night of your collection.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
How do we get unwanted trash bins removed?
You call 311 and let them know, and the inspectors will come out. We will come out and investigate to make sure that it does not belong to someone, because it could belong to someone who is just leaving it out.
No, it's mine that's, I've collected over the years, and now I have too many. I just want to, and one of them is all ripped up, and I just want to get rid of.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll give you my information. I'll personally come by and get the can from.
So what other kind of enforcement do you do?
We deal with all failure to maintain abundant public space. That is from your property line to the curb for residents. For commercial properties, it's from their property line 18 inches into the street that they have to maintain. It's also, plastic bags are not legal. They're only supposed to be in your containers, because the plastic bags allow the squirrels, the raccoons, and possums to eat through the bag, and the trash are being scattered all over the alleyway or the front of your property. Also, overgrowth, that's something that I want to speak on. It's about to be that time of the year where your grass, your bushes are growing. You have to cut your overgrowth back to your property line. It cannot protrude over into public space, preventing free use of the public space. That's also a citation. So we have those are some of the main ones we do is trash cans, overgrowth, failure to maintain public space. Those are the ones that's more consistent that people seem to not take care of. And also I want to let y'all know that I have been dealing with your businesses up Pennsylvania Avenue. I've been going to these different Exxon down the street and up the street. I've been over in the back alleys dealing with these commercial properties that are not properly storing their trash. And I made the Exxon get a recycling container, both Exxons, because they were not recycling. So, like I said, I'll be at this next.
Can you address yard waste collection? Is it supposed to be happening at the same time as our regular household trash, or what's the schedule going to be for the spring, summer?
Yard waste, you should call 311. So that sometimes if it's maybe a bag or two, the guys will grab it. And sometimes they won't grab it because it's, they'll call us because they don't know necessarily what's in the bag sometimes. So they'll call us saying that it's plastic bag.
But it should be a separate collection.
Yes, it's best to call 311 because then we'll know that your yard waste is out there for collection.
Okay. I think you're performing a valuable public service. It's really Big Brother, but what the heck. Can you do anything about those little ornamental grates that were put around some tree boxes of the public space on Pennsylvania Avenue that are sort of always run over by tires and things? So they look really bad.
Now, actually that is DDOT.
Okay.
That deals with the beautification around the tree box space.
Okay.
Now, if you have an issue, I have no problem with emailing DDOT about that situation and have them come out and look at it.
but people are allowed to beautify the tree box space.
Yeah, I think she's talking about DDOT unbeautifying the tree dot space because they're overgrown, they're broken up, and we call quite a bit, and they're pretty slow. So, but I know that's not your area.
So what I do, I have no problem with getting involved with that. I have no problem with getting involved with that email chain to try to speed things up for you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you very much. And again, I really appreciate it. And so we'll make sure to reach out to you again, Mr. Davis. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. So another thing, I know I forgot one more announcement. One of our neighbors asked, there's been some emails circulating about Porch Fest that one of our neighbors is having and sponsoring. Now, I want to be clear that whatever our neighbors are doing, we support it. We want to work it in. It's an independent event. That's not a Penn Branch event, but just because it's a Penn Branch event doesn't mean that we don't support it. I personally, I just said, if you work with me, I work with you, but if you're not working with me, it doesn't make any difference. I work with you anyway, because if it's this community at the same time, I don't want to see a failure in Penn Branch. So I tell you, if you hear something about it, Lance, I know you attended that meeting, you asked me about it, and I told you that we were going to make that announcement. So we want to make sure that whatever is taking place, we support it. So that will be on a lot of our social media. We just want to make sure we support whatever's taking place in this neighborhood. But we want it to proceed organized in a manner that it doesn't interrupt with what we've already planned as a community. So I do want to stipulate that.
I just want to add that if anybody's interested, there's some flyers on the back table of the Porch Fest.
Okay, thank you. But again, we want to make sure that we're working together, okay? Elson, we got an important announcement from Elson about the elections that are taking place, and then we'll start wrapping up. Yep.
Thank you, Jimmy. So those of you who don't know me, my name is Elson Nash. I'm the chair of the nominating committee. So we will be extending this opportunity because we need to make sure that we get officers to replace our wonderful officers here. Those of us who are block captains we've done a push out to the community around nominations. We've gotten a few, but we need to make sure that we get more nominations for our officers. As you know, this is critically important to the legacy that many of our older neighbors have created for our community. And so it's critically important that we get more nominations for these offices. And so I will continue, along with the block captains, to push out to make sure that we get more folks to continue this legacy and this great work of our neighborhood association.
Do you have certain positions that you haven't received nominations for?
Actually, the folks who have interest in, they're open. So they haven't said what positions that they're interested in. I've got 3 folks who have been nominated, and they said that they're flexible in terms of the opening. So with that, I just want to make sure that we get other folks who are interested, and if there are folks who want to nominate folks specifically for offices, submit those names. I will follow up with those individuals to see if they accept the nomination. Elections were supposed to be in May. And so that's one of the reasons why we need to do this push.
Are all on a rotating, like you have your president and secretary, and then that following year, the vice president and treasurer or something? All of them?
It's the whole slate. So based on the current bylaws, it's the whole slate, it's not staggered. Yes, ma'am.
Those who are interested, will they please stand so I'll see who they are?
Meaning if anyone is here that's interested?
Yeah. Did you really stand so?
Are any of the folks here that are interested?
I should hope so. Yeah, true.
And if folks want, I've got some nomination forms here. If you have folks that you would like to nominate, or if you would like to nominate yourself, we'll pass them around.
Okay, so we'll do that. So a couple of things now, it has been pointed out to us. A couple of people have emailed saying that they wish the terms were staggered. They think that would create the vacuum, because right now we're rushing trying to fill all the officers' slate. The other thing that's come to our attention, our bylaws are no longer complied with DC standards, so they really need to be updated. And we could stand for them updated. It's one of those things I wish I had done, but given where we are, it's too late for me, and hopefully the next will do it. But we should start taking a critical look at our bylaws. I know I did reach out to DC pro bono. They had looked at it. They did point out that there were some major changes in 2011, so our bylaws are really out of sync with DC law. We know that. It would have made a more equitable address of the way that our officer terms are done. I know that there could be some improvement. But Mr. Nash, make sure you reach out to Elson, because he's done a great job of making sure it's an organized process. And what we intend to do, we want to make sure that the community is able to really vet the people who are running. So we're trying to avoid the pop up and run from the floor, but being able to give people, to make sure it's a thoughtful process to the elections, and that we all know it in advance. Earl Williams has also brought up a good point. Earl Williams is president of DC Citizens Federation, and want to talk briefly about his forum.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Earl Williams. I'm president of the Federation of Citizens Associations of DC. On Saturday, we're having a candidates forum. Doors open at 10 o'clock at the Masonic Temple at 10th and U, right next to the African American Civil War Memorial. We're going to start a chair forum at 11 o'clock. That'll run from 11 to 12. And then at 12:15, Mr. Goodwin will have an opportunity to talk about his vision for the city and the other at-large candidates. We're also inviting those candidates that have filed independent. So we're going to have a full day of people talking about their plans for the city. Current member Nita Bonds and Alyssa Silverman also will be there. So if you're available, come out on Saturday. Doors open at 10. It's from 10 to 2 at the Masonic Temple, 10th and U Street, Northwest. Light fair to start our day off, and then we're going to have some good political discussion. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So are there any announcements or anything that I missed? I just want to make sure. So I tell you what, we want to be respectful of our neighbors. I know we are trying to address a lot. We ask you to call 311. We'll be pushing more information out through the Penn Branch DC listserv. If you're not on it, give me a call, or someone will make sure that you're on it. Our goal is to make sure that we have a listserv that really just focuses on Penn Branch, with Penn Branch issues, and that it's an listserv that when I'm gone, it continues in perpetuity to be run by the community. So there's been a lot of questions why there are more than one listserv. The real reason that there's a listserv is we wanted one that's attached to Penn Branch, that whoever's president, that's what it is, and it represents Penn Branch Citizen Civic Association. So it's not a competing issue, but it's just to make sure that we get pertinent information out to the community, and that we don't have external controls. But that's the reason it's done in good spirit. We don't oppose any other listservs, but want to make sure that we're representing ourselves. If you have any questions about anything, again, you can email info@pennbranchdc.org, info@pennbranchdc.org, or you can call me up on my cell phone is so public, I answer every call. So, and that number is 202-669-3974. 202-669-3974. So thank you. Oh, and one final announcement. I keep forgetting myself. Next week is the Ward 7 Democrats meeting. So you don't have to be a Democrat to attend, but we welcome everyone, our community. It's Ward 7 focus, so we invite you all also to attend to that. And with that, thank you very much for coming, and stay tuned, and love your neighbors. Ward 7 Democrats meeting at Dorothy Height Library on Benning Road.
Nice, Dan.